You're good to go.
Thank you for joining our expert session. June is National Dairy Month, and today's discussion will provide insight on understanding dairy from farm to training table. I'm Katie Knappenberger, and I'll play the role of moderator and panelist. Currently, I'm the Director of Performance Nutrition at Northwestern University. Before arriving at Northwestern in 2014, I worked at Daytona State College as an assistant professor and athletic trainer. Now, I'd like to introduce our panelists, Allison Parker, Robin Brown, and Sue McGlosky. Allison Parker works for the National Dairy Council as the Director of Nutrition Science and Partnership. Allison is a registered dietitian passionate about food, fitness, and nutrition, with over 10 years of experience ranging from clinical dietetics, community, retail, public relations, communication, nutrition research, and food industry expertise. Robin Brown is a dietitian with Midwest Dairy. She helps manage the health and wellness team. She also serves as the media spokesperson in the Chicago market. She has created and led various projects in her role, including work with collegiate student athletes and Fuel Up to Play 60, a culinary program, and outreach to key health and wellness leaders. Sue McGlosky is a farmer and founder of Fairlife and Fair Oaks Farm co-founder. As a farmer, she believes that high quality, great tasting nutrition starts with high quality milk that comes from sustainable farming and extraordinary animal care. Thanks to our partners at the National Dairy Council for sponsoring our expert session. Let's discuss a few logistics for the call. All of your phone and computer lines are muted and will remain muted for the duration of the call. If you have a question, please submit your question under the question tab as part of the control panel on your screen. I will moderate the questions and ask them to our panelists as the conversation flows. I may also answer your questions by typing a response. Please note that we will do our best to follow this discussion guide.
Great. So I think with that, we're handing it over to you, Sue.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I just wanted to bring the perspective of the dairy farmer first and foremost, because it starts with our beautiful cows who do all the hard work for us in providing milk, which is what we all know is basically the perfect food, especially for athletes. So just a quick history of myself and my husband, Mike. We are both from non-generational farming families, which is kind of a little bit untraditional for farmers in this country. But I think it's us a unique opportunity to kind of look into dairy and see some of the things that might have been missing, that we might have been missing as far as connecting to the consumer for the past 25, 30 years as we've watched fluid milk sales decline. So we started out with Mike's veterinarian practice in Southern California. Mike was trained in University of Mexico, did his residency at University of California, Davis, and then we established a practice in Southern California. Started with a small dairy there, milking 300 cows, and today in Indiana, we milk over 15,000 cows at our farms at Fair Oaks Farms. In 2004, we opened up Fair Oaks Farms to the public because we understood that there were a lot of people out there telling the story of dairy and not telling it in a very positive light, and not telling it very truthfully either. So we opened up our farms, and today we host over 500,000 people on the campus of Fair Oaks Farms. It's been a great, enlightening, very positive consumer messaging. We've had a lot of success, and have had look to continue to grow the experience. We also started back in 1994 our own milk cooperative, focusing on very high quality milk coming from sustainably farmed dairy farms that were owned by dairy families. And today we're the 5th largest cooperative in the country. And then together with our dairy cooperative, Select Milk Producers, we founded a company called Fairlife. And about 4 or 5 years after we founded that company, Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola company, became our partner. And now you can find Fairlife milk across the country in over 90-something% supermarkets, as well as finding our recovery milkshakes, Core Power and Delete Core Power, all over the country, and our new Smart Snack line, which is all based in really the goodness of dairy, but emphasizing the things that we're all looking for more of, which is protein and calcium, and downplaying some of the things that we don't want, like sugars, and then also making something that's a lactose-free product across the board. So I've had the unique opportunity to kind of be in dairy from like literally from planting the seed in the ground to putting that bottle of Fairlife milk in your family's home. And so I've been asked to kind of participate from the farmer's perspective here. And I guess basically there's 3 things that we talk about when we have visitors come to Fair Oaks Farms, and that is that, number one, as a dairy farmer, we make a living off of the backs of our hardworking, beautiful dairy cows, and so it just doesn't make sense that we would be abusing them. And in fact, the exact opposite is the truth. Every dairy farmer across this country wakes up every morning thinking about how they can make their girls more comfortable, because the happier a cow is, the more productive she's going to be for you. The second thing that we always emphasize is that, hey, farmers, you know what? We're the original environmentalists. Because farming is such a generational, passed down kind of enterprise, it just, again, doesn't really make sense that you're going to hand off something that was handed to you from your parents and give it to your children in worse condition than what you had it. So again, it's farmers think about every day how to do more with less, which is a really true definition of sustainability. And we think about in terms of, that what we're doing out on our farms isn't just going to our neighbors' dinner tables, but also to our dinner and breakfast tables in our own homes. So we care a lot about what we produce. And that leads me to the third point that we always talk about, and that is that milk is, besides being one of the most nutrient-dense packed foods on the planet, it's also, especially here in the United States, one of the safest foods that you can that consumer dollar can purchase. And of course, it's obviously one of the tastiest too. So those are the 3 big messages that, along with Dairy Management Incorporated and all of the organizations that work with dairy, those are the 3 big things that we talk about that are very easy for the consumer to kind of take hold of and understand. From the perspective of Fairlife, our company that kind of has created a higher value recognition in milk, I think that you're going to start seeing, as we have seen already, a lot of imitation happening in the dairy world with new and innovative products. So, and to us, that's, as a dairy farmer, that excites me because, we want people, and especially nutritionists and athletes, to see the beauty of and the completeness of milk as something that used as a recovery drink or something that's used as a meal replacer. So as a dairy farmer, I'm very happy about the acceptance that Fairlife has had across the board, from the consumer to the athlete to even the farming community, have really gotten behind it and are kind of demanding innovation from the industry and from their cooperatives. So it's been a great experience to see how Fairlife, with its higher protein, lower sugar, lactose-free, different types of products that we're making, has been so accepted, and especially again in the nutrition world, where we find that not only are nutritionists recommending for kind of that healthy athletic person, but also for that person that might be recovering from an illness, might be recovering from surgery or chemotherapy. Across the board, we're seeing how Fairlife is being used in so many different ways, which all goes really to the bottom line of that dairy is truly indispensable in our diets, regardless if you're an athlete or weekend warrior or just a mom taking care of her family. It really plays into all aspects of our lives. So with that, I think I'll kind of pass it along, and then we can obviously get into some more detail, and I'd be glad to take questions as we go along too.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sue. So before I jump into kind of the sustainable nutrition story, I just wanted to reset everybody on who is National Dairy Council and what we do. So for those that may not be aware, National Dairy Council is a nonprofit organization funded by about 40,000 dairy farm families across the United States. We have a diverse team of scientists, dietitians, communications professionals. We work together to develop and deliver science-based information to a variety of different stakeholders, everything from academics to government to health professional organizations like CPSDA. And I'm really proud to represent America's dairy farmers and importers with these groups. So I'm just going to take the first few minutes here to talk a little bit about sustainable nutrition and what that means for the dairy industry. And if you had the chance to attend the CPSDA annual meeting, you might have heard me mention a few of these points, so I'll keep it as short as possible. So first, the dairy community is committed to a world well nourished and contributing to health and sustainable food systems to help foster healthy people, communities, and the family. And I bet in the last month, a few of you have had questions from your athletes or clients about where's your food made, maybe about animal care or food systems. It's really becoming more than just a nutrition story with our athletes. And I think if I asked you that same question 10 or 15 years ago, you probably would have had a different answer. Because we know the world is changing, and research and insights has shown us that people are in fact more interested in food and where their food comes from. And that's especially true for our athletes. They want to know how it impacts their bodies and what's going into their bodies. So as more consumers begin to question this, it's going to be important for us to be able to answer those questions, but also encourage them to continue to enjoy it. And we know they want to do it all with as little work and prep as possible. So how can we help them get to that point? National Dairy Council celebrated its centennial in 2015, and as we look to the future, we knew sustainability had to be at the core of our updated mission statement, which is bringing to life the dairy community's shared vision of a healthy, happy, and sustainable world with science as our foundation. And so why did we include sustainability? Probably not a surprise to you. We're challenged with not just feeding, but nourishing over 9 billion people globally by 2050. And quite frankly, right now, our Earth just doesn't have the capacity to nourish this growing population. We've actually already started borrowing natural resources from our children in the future. So to stem this tide, the United Nations developed what they call 17 Sustainable Development Goals to address this challenge facing citizens of the world. The reality is we all have a role to play in these goals, but especially the second goal for dietitians in the dairy industry, which is to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. It's an area we both can really start to move the needle. And dairy is actually tied into every single one of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and we actually have a really great story to tell and a fabulous but untapped opportunity to be part of the solution to a more nourished and healthy future for our people and planet. So to help kind of explain this to you a little bit better, we developed 3 new infographics, which you can find on nationaldairycouncil.org. Just search for sustainable nutrition, and those will come up, and you can check them out to kind of how the dairy community is addressing this issue. And the truth is, a commitment to sustainability isn't new for our 40,000 plus dairy farm families who make responsibly produced nutrient-rich dairy foods possible for all of us to enjoy. Just as we've been grounded in science at National Dairy Council, the dairy community has always been grounded in sustainability. They want their farms to last for generations upon generations. So the way they vocalize this commitment to sustainability is with the following statement. The U.S. dairy community supports socially responsible, economically viable, and environmentally sound dairy food systems that promote the current and future health and well-being of people, communities, employees, businesses, and the planet. And we all know sustainable diets and food systems is very complex. It's much more than just a carbon footprint or greenhouse gas emissions. The 2010 Food and Agriculture Organization brought together leaders from across the globe to come up with kind of what they define as sustainable diets. And it's an intense definition, but I'll read it for you. Sustainable diets are those diets with low environmental impacts which contribute to food and nutrition security and to a healthy life for present and future generations. They're protective and respectful of biodiversity and ecosystems, culturally acceptable, accessible, economically fair, affordable, nutritionally adequate, safe, and healthy, while optimizing natural and human resources. So quite a mouthful. And we really have to update how we look at food to include this broader view of sustainable food systems. Sustainable nutrition, it's really an emerging field. It's part of a broader discipline of sustainability, and it is the intersection of agriculture, food production, nutrition, and health. It's not only how foods contribute to nourishment and health and well-being, but also how it contributes to economic and environmental outcomes as well. Often we call this the triple bottom line, where nutrient-rich foods like dairy are at the intersection of social, economic, and environmental aspects of sustainability. So it impacts not just one, but all 3 outcomes. And if you think of it like a 3-legged stool, you need all 3 legs to keep the stool standing and balanced. It's the same concept here. You have to consider all 3 dimensions to keep a healthy balance among healthy people, economies, and the health of the planet. Because sustainable food systems relies on science, and it's an ongoing journey, not just a destination. So the way the dairy community really shows this interconnectivity of sustainable food systems is this honor the harvest visual, which we have on your outline today. Showing that nourishing people, animals, and land is all linked and part of a cycle. So here's just an example. Dairy cows eat parts of crops like whole corn plants that people can't eat. And then the cow's unique 4-chambered stomach helps convert those largely grass-based diets into nutrient-rich milk that's a good source of high-quality protein and 9 essential nutrients for our clients and athletes. And then the cow manure acts as a natural fertilizer to grow crops to help nourish people and animals. So you can see how all of those things are interrelated and interconnected. So now I'm just going to go briefly, because I know dairy's human nutrition is probably pretty well known by you. And I really wanted to share this food system story so you could better help explain sustainable nutrition, or at least start to have that conversation with your athletes and colleagues as we all continue to learn more about it. But why dairy for your athletes? So you probably know your athlete's diet needs to meet the performance needs as well as their own health needs. And we know not only does milk provide nutrients to aid athletes during recovery from exercise, but it's also included in the 2015 dietary guidelines for Americans. Low-fat and fat-free dairy foods like milk, cheese, and yogurt are a fundamental part of a healthy eating style. And it's been linked to health benefits such as reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. We know milk and dairy provide high-quality protein specifically for our athletes to help build and repair muscle, fluid and electrolytes to help rehydrate and replace what's lost in sweat, and chocolate milk gives you those, which is also delicious, but also provides carbohydrates to help refuel our muscle energy stores. From a micronutrient standpoint, milk provides calcium, vitamin D, phosphorus to help maintain and build strong bones, as well as riboflavin, which helps convert energy, food to energy to fuel your working muscles. So just briefly, a top line on a little bit of the research that we've seen on milk specifically. And I have copies of all the studies that we mention or refer to today. So if you have questions, you can always email or call me. But as I'm sure many of you are aware, there's a number of studies that have shown milk is consumed after exercise can increase protein synthesis or the building repair of muscles. And the studies have included post-exercise milk consumption as part of a longer-term training program, and subjects have had preferential improvements in body composition as well. So there's research to show both it helps with muscle protein synthesis and body composition changes. From a rehydration standpoint, research has shown that milk can be effective in supporting rehydration after intense exercise. The studies with rehydration all follow a similar protocol where the subjects performing a bout of dehydrating exercise achieve about 2% loss of body weight, which we know can negatively impact performance. They then consume milk or a carbohydrate electrolyte beverage or sports drink in a volume that provides 150% of the fluid loss. And fluid balance is then assessed over a period of 2 to 5 hours and used as a marker of hydration. So overall, those studies all support milk being as good, if not better, of a beverage for maintaining fluid balance in the recovery period following that dehydrating exercise compared to the carbohydrate electrolyte beverage or water alone. And there's a lot of reasons that are hypothesized why it may be the makeup of the milk that's actually leading to an increased absorption of the fluid. So it's really interesting to watch this research unfold. Lastly, there's a body of research that's looked at milk and its impact on muscle damage or recovery, on indirect markers of muscle damage, typically compares a calorie-matched carbohydrate beverage to milk, and the majority of these studies have shown that the benefit of milk compared to a calorie-matched beverage, carbohydrate beverage, consumed during acute recovery period following that bout of high-intensity exercise, typically cycling time to exhaustion or time trial, is how the studies have been laid out. And they've seen recovery benefits from milk. And another factor that's been hypothesized is also contributing to this performance improvement is in the reduction in indirect markers of muscle damage that have been shown in some but not all studies that have compared milk to this carbohydrate beverage. So now I've briefly covered the research, kind of the top line studies and outcomes. I wanted to talk a little bit about the potential benefits to your athletes that dairy provides from a nutritional standpoint. So a broader look at the nutrient package of dairy foods. Cow's milk provides a complete package. It's not easily matched by other foods. For example, I like this kind of gives you a good visual. We have an infographic that shows this, but the same amount of calcium you can get from 3 8-ounce glasses of milk. From kale, you'd have to eat 36.5 cups of it. So that's a lot of kale and probably wouldn't have a very happy stomach after all that kale. So milk makes an easy and convenient solution to meeting those nutritional needs. We know some of our athletes may come to us with lactose intolerance or are looking at dairy alternatives, but in most cases, the nutrients can be obtained often at a fraction of the cost through cow's milk, like Fairlife. And when comparing milk and milk substitutes, it's clear not all beverages are created equal, and protein, vitamin, and mineral content can vary greatly. So it's important to compare label to label the differences between the two with your athletes. Cow's milk is simply that, just milk with added vitamin A and D. And as I mentioned earlier, it provides a unique package of nutrients, all which mostly are naturally occurring, including protein, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, riboflavin, and B12. The alternatives may be more processed. They usually contain 8 or more added ingredients. And then we have a resource that we're going to be able to share with you soon. They're little flip cards with the nutritional attributes of milk compared to the alternatives like soy, almond, and coconut. So you could use that in your sessions with athletes and quickly show at a glance the difference in nutrition. We also know our athletes are on a limited budget, and dairy truly gives you more bang for your buck. Milk costs about average 26 cents per glass compared to 42 cents or higher for alternatives, and it contains those 9 essential nutrients. So it's easy, cost-effective way to get high-quality protein, carbohydrate, fluid, and electrolytes, as well as vitamins and minerals. And last, when we look specifically at protein, it provides you with quality protein, 2 to 7 or more grams of protein compared to those milk alternatives like soy, almond, rice, or coconut drinks. And as part of a higher protein diet, milk really helps your athletes keep staying full and provides a great source of nutrients for lacto-vegetarian diets as well. We know from the ACSM the Academy and the Dietitians of Canada position stand that protein recommendations above and beyond what's currently recommended by the dietary guidelines are needed by athletes to support muscle recovery from routine and vigorous exercise. So current suggested intake range is 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram of protein per day. So dairy proteins in particular are highlighted in this position stand, which states to date, dairy proteins seem to be superior to other tested proteins largely due to their leucine content and the digestion and absorptive kinetics of branched chain amino acids in fluid-based dairy foods. And the International Society of Sports Nutrition position stand also has a very similar statement in their nutrition stand. So athletes should be encouraged to choose protein sources which are higher in leucine because we know this helps rebuild and repair their muscles faster. And some experts recommend aiming for 2.5 grams of leucine immediately following workouts, which is the key amino acid in promoting muscle protein synthesis. There's a number of dairy food options that help deliver this high quality protein needed by athletes. And per serving, you can get in 1 8-ounce glass of milk about 1 gram of leucine. Cottage cheese provides about 1.4 grams per half cup, and yogurt has 1 gram in a 7-ounce container. But unflavored whey protein isolate powder actually is that exact amount, 2.5 grams of leucine per 22 gram scoop. So it's one of the best sources of leucine you can find. So speaking lastly about whey, milk contains 80% of the protein in milk is casein and 20% is whey protein. And both whey and casein are considered high quality complete proteins. However, there's subtle differences in amino acid composition and rate of digestion, which impact maybe kind of how you're going to use them with athletes. So I'll just last review those before I turn it over to Katie and Robin. So casein is often referred to as that slow digesting protein. It's more of a gradual, prolonged release of amino acids, but again, both casein and whey are found in milk. And recently, scientists have hypothesized that taking casein before bed may help with maximizing muscle rebuilding, repair, and recovery after exercise, as it's a slow release of amino acids overnight, which helps with when there's that long break between meals, 8 and 12 hours away. To date, there's only really been 2 studies in healthy young men performing resistance exercise that have shown improved recovery and greater gains in muscle mass when casein was provided, so it's a promising area of research. Whey protein is often referred to as the fast protein due to its rapid and more transient release of amino acids to the muscle, and so that's one that's preferred more immediately following exercise. And these proteins are isolated and made into powders, which we've all come to know through removal from the milk, or in the case of whey protein, it's a byproduct of cheese making. It's then pasteurized and dried into a powder and used as an ingredient in many different foods and beverages. So given it's one of the most concentrated sources of leucine and among protein-containing foods, along with its rapid digestibility, whey really is an excellent choice for post-exercise recovery because it provides all the essential amino acids. It's quickly digested and absorbed, resulting in a fast delivery of amino acids to the muscle, and it can contain minimal amounts of lactose. So depending on what product is used, some brands may be really great for lactose intolerant individuals. But again, you can get both whey and casein in a glass of milk, so you could also just drink that milk. All right, so from bone building to muscle health, nutrient-rich foods like dairy provide health benefits and help with exercise recovery and keep your student athletes at the top of their game. Dairy foods can really help provide the nutrients and protein your clients and athletes need to help build a nutrient-rich diet to support an active lifestyle. And we know there's a significant body of science to support the role of milk in exercise recovery. There's also a variety of practical tips to help student athletes incorporate dairy foods into their training diets, which I've included some of those resources and tools in the follow-up pages in this outline, and you can click on those links in the handout and go directly to our website to find those tools. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Katie and Robin to tell you a little bit more about what they do. Again, if you're interested in any of the research studies, lit reviews I've shared, or these references or resources or tools, please don't hesitate to contact me. It's just my name, allison.parker@dairy.org. So with that, I'll hand it over to Katie and Robin to talk to you about the valuable dairy, how you can bring the valuable dairy story to your athletes' training tables. Okay.
Thank you. Robin, did you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. as Katie said in the beginning, I'm Robin Brown. I am a dietitian with Midwest Dairy, and I've had the pleasure of working with Katie now for, gosh, I don't know how many years since you've been on staff, but what I guess I should start off saying that, so Midwest Dairy, I believe, is one of 17 state and regional dairy councils that are all affiliates of the National Dairy Council. Midwest Dairy, we cover 10 states, as you can see on the map here. So we cover North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, and Eastern Oklahoma. So we cover a very large region of the country, and every dairy council works with their sports dietitians in different ways. So I'll be just talking a little bit about how, I've worked with Katie and some of how our other staff have worked with their sports dietitians in some of our other states. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Okay. So as I said, so Midwest Dairy covers 10 states, and we've had a really good relationship with Katie and Northwestern for the past 4 years, going into our 5th year. And we have a unique relationship with Northwestern as we work with their student athletes as well as Katie and her other dietitian as with our Fuel Up to Play 60 program. And they have been a great resource to bring not only the student athletes into the Fuel Up to Play 60 schools, but they are great with giving the dairy message on our behalf. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Fuel Up to Play 60, Fuel Up to Play 60 is an in-school wellness program for K through 12, which encourages kids in the school to fuel up with nutrient-rich foods and be active for 60 minutes a day. So it's a great tie-in to the student athletes at Northwestern. So aside from that program, and that is fairly unique to Northwestern, but some other things we've done with some of our other dietitians across our 10-state region is, as Allison said, with all the resources that come from National Dairy Council, we provide those free of charge to our sports dietitians. Some of the resources can be found on our website at midwestdairy.com. And other times too, if you're just looking for something, feel free to reach out to your local SR, and they will be able to provide you with the resource that you're looking for, hopefully. Some of the other things that we have, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this too, is on our website, we also have recipes that are free to download. Anyone can use them. There's a lot of good ones specifically for athletes to refer back to. We love our chocolate milk, so you'll find a lot of recipes with chocolate milk. And then on the Midwest Dairy website as well is we have different resources for nutrition, nutrition science, and we also have toolkits that are available to everyone to use. And I guess the last thing that I will just talk briefly about is in the past, we have been able to offer grants specifically to our sports dietitians. Again, this is going to be something that's unique to every SR. So just because this is something that Midwest Dairy has been able to do in the past doesn't mean that every SR will do it, or they may do it differently. 2 of the grants that we've given out in the past couple of years is the most recent one is that we gave Katie and her athletes a smoothie bike, which I still have to come and see. Yes. But it's a fun thing that Katie can use with the athletes to get in one of the 3 servings of dairy every day. And then the other grant that we've given out recently is from St. Louis University. We've given them grant dollars to purchase coolers to help keep their chocolate milk cold. The athletic director and the sports dietitian at that university they were already providing chocolate milk to all of their athletes, and this just helped them to be able to provide more. So those are just some of the things Midwest Dairy has done. And so now, Katie, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that Robin or somebody in Robin's position has helped me with. In my previous institution, the way that I requested my budget was a little bit different than the way that I currently do it. And so I had to propose every cent that I wanted to use. And so one of the first things that I proposed was chocolate milk for the reasons that Allison mentioned. There's a lot of bang for your buck in chocolate milk. So I was able to talk about how much nutrition I would be able to give athletes for the administration's dollar, and how far that could go in terms of research and evidence-based nutrition recovery. And so I got a lot of that information from Allison and her group in order to kind of defend spending that money. And by the time I kind of put the package together, it was really a no-brainer for our administration. And so that was one of the first, I think the first item that we were able to provide our athletes. And so that was really exciting, but I couldn't have done it very easily or quickly without all the information from the National Dairy Council. So I wanted to mention that as something to look into for our sports dietitians. Another thing I wanted to mention is that, a great relationship with Robin has been really very beneficial. She sends me CEU opportunities. She sends me the newest, when there's new infographics out or new information, she'll email those over to me. So she kind of helps me stay on the cutting edge of research in that area, as well as some of the hot topics that a lot of people are asking questions about. Robin will send me the answers before I've even asked the question sometimes, which is really helpful. So I really appreciate that relationship. And then she opened the door for a lot of community service for our performance nutrition unit, which is really important to Northwestern, giving back to the community. And so Robin has provided some really easy avenues for us to get our community service in, and it feels really good and the kids love it. And so that's been really great for us. So she mentioned some of the tools and recipes, and so I guess we can get into some of the practical applications of how we use dairy here, because obviously when it's not shelf stable, there is a food service, it's a potentially hazardous food, so there's a food service concern, and so there's easy ways to manage that. And so I just wanted to mention some quick ideas from us. There's always a shelf stable option. We have a shelf stable Fairlife available for our athletes, and so if food safety or not having cooler space and any of that is of concern, there's always a really nice shelf stable option available, so we could go in that direction. If we're going to go, because we also have some items that need to be refrigerated and monitored closely. And so a few things to consider there is just before embarking upon that, consider the path from how the food is going to get to you. So does that involve, somebody on your staff going to pick it up? And if so, are they traveling with coolers and things to keep the dairy cold so that by the time it gets to you, it's been kind of held at temperature? Is it coming off of a refrigerated truck from a delivery company? If so, have you checked in with the delivery company? Just kind of spot check the temperature of the truck to make sure that that's at a safe holding temperature. You also check out that path from the truck to your fueling station. In some cases, the truck will drop it off at a loading dock, and it's quite a distance away from the fueling station. And so you want to make sure that there's a safe place to hold that if it's not going to get to the fueling station right away. We all should have food thermometers, and hopefully you guys were able to have some good chats at CPSDA about food safety in our fueling stations, but we should be checking those temps with the 15 food thermometers, hopefully, that we have lying around to keep our athletes safe. And the other thing is, consider all of this. If you get the amazing opportunity to help design a facility, a lot of facilities are undergoing remodeling these days. Consider all of this when you're thinking about where to put your walk-in fridge or where to put your refrigerators, how close to the loading dock, how easy is it going to be to get that product in. So those were kind of some of the practical food safety items I wanted to share with you guys. I mean, we do daily here. We do the Core Power. We do Fairlife. We have a variety of yogurts and string cheese, and in our fueling stations, and then in our training table, we have some of the creative recipes that they have mentioned. That's mentioned in the next item. So we've done overnight oats with dairy milk and actually yogurt in those as well. A plethora of smoothies. One of my favorites is the chocolate Fairlife with way too many frozen tart cherries, so that when you mix it together, it becomes like this tart cherry ice cream recovery bomb. It's so delicious. You can put some granola on top of it, but that's a winner, definitely. Our training table does the yogurt-based salad dressings and plenty of fruit and yogurt parfaits. We've actually done the non-fat dry milk in energy bites. It's, you could also do a whey protein, but the non-fat dry milk is very, very economical. So that's a good choice for people who are really looking closely at cost. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, the chia pudding is very trendy right now. So that can be very simple. It can just be fruit with yogurt and the chia seeds, and then put in the fridge overnight, and then you have a really fun chia pudding. So I know that Robin has a ton of recipes on the website as well, and in her access. I didn't know, did I hit the high points of fun recipes?
Yeah, you mentioned all the good ones.
Perfect. So with that, are we ready to potentially take some questions? Did anybody have anything else to add?
I think so.
I'd love to add one thing, Katie,
Yes.
And I think that this is a big this is a big issue for dairy, as we all know, and a lot of nutritionists understand. But there is, there's a big conversation going on right now that's already happened, and legislation has already been passed in Europe. But one of the things that we need to make sure that people are aware of is that when we've got products that are using the word milk, they cannot compete with the complete protein profile and with all of the vitamin and mineral profiles that dairy milk has. And so, as a brand spokesperson for Fairlife, that's something I talk about to a lot of families, and especially to a lot of families with young children, to really, I'm all great for, meatless Mondays, or for having just a complete vegetable salad once in a while. Not bashing vegetarianism or veganism at all, but you know what? Let's make sure we understand what the word milk really means, because there is a lot of confusion amongst consumers. And I tell them, when I have the opportunity, they use the word milk for a reason, because if you called it almond beverage or pea beverage or coconut juice, it doesn't have that same kind of halo of goodness, which is really what milk is all about. So, as you're talking to even some of your older athletes or your college level athletes, even some of these kids really might not have that understanding about, the advantages of real milk, the only kind of milk that's out there, and how that vitamin and mineral package, along with a complete protein package, and the whole micronutrient conversation that we haven't even gotten into understanding all of the science behind that and how that interworks with our own microbiome. So, we all talk about, hey, the more natural you can eat your foods and more natural state, the better off. Milk is definitely one of those, and that's got a huge advantage over all the other milks out there. So just keep that in mind as you have your conversations with your younger athletes.
Absolutely. And something that we've, really thought about here and started to do is really look at that nutrition package. And when you kind of boil it down and think about how much milk is going into your athletes in a day, you can be a nerd dietitian and look at how many milligrams of calcium did you provide to your athletes today. Or, you could pick any nutrient, but when you start to do that, and we've done that with some of the Fairlife milk that our athletes have consumed, the numbers are just outstanding. And if you want to feel good about yourself as a dietitian, do some of that quick math, have some of your interns do some of that quick math and feel good about how many vitamins and minerals you've gotten into the bodies of your athletes. So, are you guys ready for some questions?
Yeah, sounds
okay,
good.
Wonderful. Okay, so one of the questions is, we have athletes asking about, they're concerned about hormones and antibiotics in their milk. And how, the question is, how do we best as sports dietitians address their concerns about hormones and antibiotics being in their milk?
Sure.
I'll go ahead and take that one, being the dairy farmer on the group here. Well, if you want to, let's start here. If you want to talk about hormones, let's look at broccoli. I mean, as nutrition scientists, I don't think you should be afraid to have that higher level conversation about, hey, all foods have hormones. That's, it's kind of like science 101. So start there. But from the perspective of safety of milk, we don't, pretty much, there's no fluid milk, and even now cheeses and soft dairy products in the country that are using RBST, which is the synthetic hormone that actually wasn't a bad tool for dairy farmers, because it gave us it was the exact replication of a growth hormone that for dairy cows was not compatible with human bodies, so there was no pass-through. It allowed us to have to get a little bit more production out of our cows, and therefore they became more sustainable because with a less carbon footprint. But we didn't get out in front of it. We didn't have that conversation with the consumer to explain first and then use the product. So we'll take that one. That was all our fault as an industry. But there really was no downside to it at all. In fact, it was one of the most heavily studied products that ever came out that was approved by FDA. To the other question about antibiotics, every load of milk is tested 3 times down to 1 part per billion for antibiotics. So as course on the dairy farm, we have an organic dairy farm where we're not allowed to use any antibiotics to treat cows if they become ill. And then we have our conventional dairy farms as well. I wouldn't have it any other way, because when cows do get sick on my organic farm and I'm not allowed to treat them, to cure them of their illness with an antibiotic, just like you would for your pet or your child, I move them over to our conventional dairy farms where I can treat them, and then they go on to have a great, happy life. But because we have the two, it really works out very well. But from the moment a cow gets a treatment of an antibiotic, and again, we don't just generally give them, we don't spread it over their feed. It's only used for cows that are sick. Just again, it's like if your dog or your cat had an abscess, the best and easiest way to cure that is through antibiotics. So when we give a cow antibiotics, it is a very specific amount used for a specific range of time. It has a very specific withdrawal time. So that could be from anywhere from 2 to 5 days, where her milk would not go into a tank that would be for human consumption. So we test her, that one cow, at the time of withdrawal, 1 part per billion. Before every milk tank leaves our farm, we test it when it's 7,000 gallons of milk down to 1 part per billion. When that milk tanker gets to a milk plant, whether it's going to make fluid milk or cheese or yogurt or whatever, it gets tested again even before it's unloaded. So from the cow to the farm tank to the processing tank, that milk is tested 3 times down to 1 part per billion. So I feel pretty confident saying that we don't have a problem with antibiotics in milk.
Awesome, thank you. I have another question here. It's a question from a sports dietitian who is wondering if organic versus conventional milk, if organic is worth the investment for our athletes.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to you from, again, from the farmer's perspective, and maybe Robin and Allison will chip in, and just to talk about nutrition profiles. But from a farmer's perspective, and again, being an organic dairy farmer and also a conventional dairy farmer, I go out there, I see the difference. I see how much more resources it takes to produce 1 gallon of organic milk versus 1 gallon of conventional milk. Right now, I think the best organic dairy in the country is running about 17 pounds to 20 pounds of carbon per gallon of milk. And that's a super duper efficient, and it's a big organic dairy. Compared to the just an average dairy farm throughout the country runs at a little below 17 pounds of carbon per gallon of milk. At Fair Oaks Farms, where we use some really cool technology like anaerobic digesters to create electricity and a renewable biofuel to power trucks that haul our milk down the highways here in the Midwest, to using just a lot of technology and and a lot of sustainable farming that we're able to drive our carbon footprint down to actually 7 pounds of carbon. So, again, I'll let Allison and Robin talk to the nutrition aspect, but if you're truly a concerned consumer out there, organic, it's great that consumers have choices, but it's not the sustainable product that we like to think it is.
Yeah, and from a nutritional standpoint, there's really not been any research or studies to show that it's substantially different from conventional organic versus conventional. So cup for cup, you're getting about the same nutritional profile, but the cost at the end of the day is going to be one of the bigger differential. And we know with college athletes, they're on kind of a limited budget, so it's really cup for cup nutritionally the same.
I would add to that, if you're willing to spend that money, then look for things like Fairlife that actually have more nutrition and more value as opposed to a philosophy. And hey, God bless you if you've got the money and that's your choice. It's a wonderful thing that we live in a country that allows us to have those choices as consumers. But from a nutrition standpoint, there is no advantage. And if you're looking for better nutrition, there's products again like Fairlife and a lot of other great products that are coming out as a dairy industry recognizes that there is opportunity for growth in fluid products because people are looking for that nutrient enhanced beverage.
Yeah. Awesome. On the topic of sustainability, there was some questions about the shelf life and the sell-by dates on the milk and how sports dietitians can navigate that, because we certainly don't want to throw away product that is good to drink, but we also don't want to serve product that is not good to drink. So could you help with navigating that for us?
Sure. Yeah, so for sell-by date, and just this kind of a good point to highlight on the outline, you can see there's a bunch of topics with blue. You can click on those links and get a blog post on each of those topics. So sell-by date's included there. So it's best to follow what the sell-by date is on your package. Your nose is probably a good indicator of whether or not the milk has gone bad. Keep it as cold as possible in the back of your fridge. Don't, leave it open on the counter for an hour. That's not going to help much. I know we have ultra pasteurization now. So if you were buying a Fairlife product or some of the organic products that have been ultra pasteurized, you'll see on that sell-by date is 3, 4, 5 months out. And I remember when I worked in a grocery store how people were so impressed. But once you open that milk, you should try to drink it within that 2-week time frame to keep it healthy and safe. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be good until probably September, October. Right now is what the sell-by date would be on an ultra pasteurized. But it is nice if you keep it sealed that it is going to last that long. Same with the reusable, like 12-ounce ones. If it's ultra pasteurized, as long as you keep it sealed, that should keep as long as it says on the sell-by date.
And I'll just add that basically there's 3 types of pasteurization. Conventional pasteurization, again, depending upon kind of quality of milk, you can get up to about a 21, 25-day shelf life, or so that use by date. Again, use by date is once that's when it should be sold off of the shelf. So conventional pasteurization, you can typically put that milk in a bottle, plastic gallon, whatever, and it's about 21 to 25 days. Extended shelf life pasteurization or ultra pasteurization is where you'll get that 3 to 4 months. So it's a little bit higher temperature is basically the only difference there. And then finally, we have aseptic pasteurization, which is in packaging, which is what Allison was referring to, where you can actually get for some of our Fairlife products, specifically Core Power and Smart Snacks, we can get a year use by date. But that is aseptic, so it's a higher pasteurization, a little bit longer time, and then it's pasteurized in an aseptic environment, so it's a sterile environment with sterile packaging. And so that's really cool that dairy is really looking at these different ways and different types of packaging and different uses for dairy's great nutrition. And so within Fairlife, we use extended shelf life, which gives us that 90 to 120 days, and then aseptic, which gives us that year-long process. But again, you got to be a milk snob, and I'm one of them. I yell at everybody in my house, don't leave milk on the counter, don't leave the top off, and make sure that your refrigerator is 34 degrees.
Right.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sue, Allison, and Robin. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope that you found this information really useful. We'll post a recording of this call to our webinar library on sportsrd.org. Thank you all so much and have a great day.
Thank you.